Welcome to myFootpath's Leadership Podcast Series. Today, we are very excited to have President Michael Benson of West Virginia University. Today, we're going to talk about leading through change, strategy, value, and the future of higher education. President Benson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Well, let's jump right in. I would love to learn. With your experiences, you've been at multiple institutions, have a lot of experience in the presidency role and beyond. Can you talk a little bit about what experiences in your leadership journey most shaped how you approach the presidency today at West Virginia?
Yeah, I like to think myself as a perpetual learner. I try and learn something new every day. I like to read. I like to read biography because I think you can extrapolate from great leaders' lessons regardless of what they were involved in, if it was business, military, coaches, entrepreneurs. Great philosophers or thinkers. All of them have kind of lessons in leadership that I've tried to kind of mold my own leadership around. So I've been blessed in my life. I'm the youngest of six kids and came from a family of modest means, but parents that really emphasized education. And my mother was a piano teacher. My father was a salesman. And we had chances as kids growing up to really invest in ourselves. But I look back now and think as the youngest, my parents gave me chances that they never would have dreamed of. I mean, I was the first to do study abroad, the first to go to graduate school overseas, and the first to really travel extensively. I've learned a ton through traveling. I speak a second language. I speak Italian. I lived in Italy for 2 years, England for three, and in Israel for about a year and a half. So all those experiences overseas kind of gave me a perspective and helped me formulate my worldview where it really, I mean, kind of the basis of my leadership is you can learn anything from anybody. And I remember Coach K wrote a memoir, kind of a leadership book years ago, and he mentioned that at the end of each practice, he would ask every member of his staff, including the student managers, what do they observe and practice that day? And he said, you have 10 different sets of eyes watching something, an event, a practice, a game, and you can get 10 very different perspectives. And from those perspectives, you can extrapolate things that apply kind of across the board. So I've always tried to elicit from other people, members of my team, students. I'm around students every day. So I'm asking them how their experience is and how we can do better. So I'm never too old to learn or too experienced not to ask. And that's, I think, a hallmark of my leadership philosophy is that I'm always trying to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you can expand a little bit on mentorship. You know, who are your mentors that really helped shape your path?
Yeah, I can trace it really back to two people. One was Mike Matson, who was the VP for development at the University of Utah. That was my first job out of graduate school, and he gave me a chance really when nobody else would. I had finished my doctorate in history, and from Oxford, I thought the world was at my feet. I could just go out and get a job. And academic market is hard to find a job in a specialty discipline. So that led to the kind of my introduction to the new president at Utah. His name is Bernie Matchin. He had come from Michigan. He had been the provost there, and I guess my work kind of got his attention. So he called me into his office one day and asked me to be his special assistant. And I said, "What exactly does that mean?" He said, "Well, you're going to do a lot of things that I don't have time to do." Or he was from Mississippi and Michigan, and Utah is a very different sort of place. So he also said I was going to be his cultural interpreter. So I tried to help him navigate a very different sort of political and social and kind of cultural landscape. And he gave me so many opportunities, Brad. I think I look back now and I think he let me have enough latitude to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And he told me one day, he said, I got my first presidency when I was 36 while I was working for him. But he said, one day I would really encourage you to pursue a presidency that's an R1 land grant institution that plays Power Four athletics, at the time Power Four athletics, that has an academic medical center. And fortunately, I'm now at West Virginia that is all those things. It checks all those boxes. And Bernie gave me so many opportunities that I've been forever grateful to him. He just turned 80, and so his staff asked me to do a video. And I did a little birthday greeting, and I said, Bernie, I owe so much to you for giving me that chance. And I've tried to do the same thing and kind of pay it forward with other people, but really owe him a lot.
Well, and at its core, let's talk a little bit about West Virginia. What do you believe West Virginia uniquely represents to the state, to its students, and even the broader higher ed landscape?
Yeah, I'll take them in order as you asked. First, the state. I mean, we're the only R1 in the state of West Virginia. Excuse me, I'm thinking about Mississippi and Bernie, and we're the only one that plays at the highest level of academic, excuse me, of athletic competition. So, you think about no professional teams. We have,
Yeah.
a minor league affiliate here in Morgantown that actually shares our baseball stadium, but people's kind of moods on Saturday and their outlook for the entire week hinges on what happens on the Saturday afternoon right here in Morgantown. And by the way, Morgantown becomes the largest city in West Virginia 7 times on Saturdays during the fall when people come for football games. So it's not lost on me that what we do athletically, the impact we have in terms of our extension operation, all 55 counties has an extension office, and what we do in terms of offering kind of social and cultural opportunities to, yes, our region, but the entire state. So we mean a great deal to the state of West Virginia. For the students, you think about half of our kids come from the state of West Virginia. We are in many ways a kind of bottom quartile in terms of social health outcomes and educational attainment. So I would argue this institution has more potential and ability to change the state's trajectory economically, professionally, health-wise, participation-wise in terms of voting, all of those sorts of things, because every study shows the more education you get, the more you're going to be less reliant on government services. You're going to participate in your community. You're going to have better health. You're going to vote. You're going to go to church. All those things that we associate kind of with quality of life. And the last thing, I remember hearing Pat McAfee, who's one of our probably most famous alumni, talk about, football in America is more fun when West Virginia is good. And we've had some up years, but some down years. But I had a chance last week to be out in Las Vegas for the induction of Steve Slayton, one of our tailbacks that
Sure.
played alongside Pat White, that very dynamic
Yeah.
backfield. And that was really fun when we won the Orange Bowl and we were part of the national conversation. And I believe we'll get there again. Basketball has always been good. Jerry West is the logo of the NBA. Our baseball teams made 2 super regionals back to back. Our gymnastics teams is always good. Our women's cross country finished second in the country last year. Rifle just won its 20th national championship. So I could go on and on about our Olympic sports, but people really do pay attention to men's and women's basketball and to football, and we'll do get better in football. I'll promise you that, and that'll mean a lot to the people of the state. But I will end with this, Brad. I am 2-0 against Pitt in football and basketball, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Wow, and that's great. You brought me back to some big names, Hall of
Yeah.
Fame names, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So just speaking about that just for a second, and I know this question could take up a podcast and probably several podcasts, but how has the NIL impacted college sports?
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I've been working in public higher net now for 30 years. And when I started in Utah, it was back in the day of Rick Majerus. We made it to the Final Four, lost to Kentucky in the national championship game. But, I think kids back then, we were a Reebok school. I don't know if anybody's a Reebok school anymore, but, Rick Majerus had that big sweater he used to wear, and kids were just happy to get a couple pairs of shoes and maybe some, walking around money for meals. But now it's a very different landscape when you can be a quarterback at Michigan and get $10 million in salary. So, we had a board of regents, or excuse me, a board of governors called today with our governing board, and the conversation around athletics was about, is there going to be any sort of resolution to what is currently happening with NIL without a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, and treating these student athletes as employees, which nobody ever would have whispered that 5, 7 10 years ago. But post house, and I had a podcast interview the other day, and the interviewer was talking about how we now kind of reckon time as pre-house and now post house. And post house is that marker really that has delineated such a sea change in the way that we approach athletics. That and one downside along with this is I hate the fact that we don't talk about academic success rate much anymore. We really don't hear much about graduation rates. You hear more about what is your payroll for football, what
Yeah.
kind of opportunities do you have for NIL for your student athletes, and we're losing sight of what is the really important role of athletics, and that's for me a means to an end. For all those kids that aren't going to play professionally, you've got to get an education and a degree that will help you once you leave our campus.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what are your top strategic priorities? If you listed three strategic priorities, what are those?
Yeah, so the Board of Regents kind of made it easy for me because they said these are the three things we want you to focus on. And interesting enough, they were on kind of financial kind of solidarity or financial stability rather. We went through a difficult period a couple of years ago, but we've come out of it. We're in good shape financially, and that's inextricably tied to number two, and that's enrollment. One data point I'd like to share is the state of West Virginia only graduated 18,000 kids from high school this past year, whereas two states to our north, Pennsylvania and Ohio, both graduated 118,000 high school kids. So we're going to give opportunity to every single West Virginia student who wants to come here the chance to do so. But we're going to have to go recruit kids from both Pennsylvania and Utah, and Ohio, but also Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey. So enrollment's number two, and number three, to them, athletics was a priority, and making sure we put West Virginia in a position to be successful. We have a very competitive Big 12. If you looked at the top 25 in men's basketball, last count, I think we have seven in the top 25. So it's going to be murder's row in terms of our conference schedule. But the board has said we want to put resources behind our athletic program and be successful. Why? Because as our AD Red Becker says, what athletics does is not the most visible. It's the most visible, but it's not the most important. And I think that's a really important kind of clarification that everybody knows about our athletic programs. You read it on A1 in the newspaper, but it's not the most important thing. What we do, delivering education, is the most important thing.
Mhm. Well, and let's let's take a look at that enrollment goal for a minute. And you talked about potentially rethinking recruitment from a specific standpoint of reaching out outside of the state and capturing students that way. If you could expand on that, and then the second point to that as well is, when you look at potentially gaining market share, how do you create smooth pathways in welcoming back former students or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
students
yeah.
that get stopped out?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first one first, and that is, if you were to draw kind of a 200 mile radius around Morgantown, you're going to pick up some Big Ten opponents. You're going to see ACC opponents. You're going to see some really fine academic private schools like a Carnegie Mellon, a Johns Hopkins, um, Pitt, Ohio State, Penn State, Virginia Tech. All of those are right here in our backyard. So we're going head to head for students that these same institutions are trying to recruit to. What we're trying to do, Brad, is really sell people on the vision of uh, come to Morgantown, which is it has that college town feel to it. We moved here from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is not a college town, wonderful beach community and a resort kind of feel to it. But this feels like you're in college, and the town rallies around the university. And when August comes around, I started in July, and just the excitement, the energy one feels walking around town and knowing the students are here, and then to have a football game at the end of a latter part of August really gets the community excited. So we really kind of want to sell that image, that vision of you're from rural Pennsylvania, or maybe you're from Pittsburgh or from Philadelphia. Why not come to a place that's got incredible natural beauty? It's scenic, it's welcoming. The population is excited to have you, and it has that college town feel. And you have a chance to get involved in so many different activities, and really make the most of it. So that's how we're approaching our recruiting. What was the second part of your question? Oh, getting
Yeah,
alumni
so
back. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Those former students that may have that are more than likely adult learners,
Yeah. Yeah.
24 plus, that maybe they stumbled upon the way. Life got in the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
I
do you
get
bring
it.
them back? Yeah.
Yeah, life happens. When we were in South Carolina, the number we heard was there were 450,000 South Carolinians that had some college credit but not a degree. And to your point, life happens, it gets complicated, things arise and they have to probably stop out for whatever reason. So we're trying to do the same thing we did there, and that is make it as seamless as possible to come back to school. We started a program that I'd really like to see if we could start here that you can take your first 5 classes online for $100 a piece
Hmm.
just to kind of get you back in a rhythm of what it's like to be back in school. So, a lot of these working adults don't have time or the wherewithal to come back to Morgantown. So, how can you meet them halfway? Maybe you do some programs that meet on weekends every so often, or maybe it's a hybrid of online and in person, or maybe it's entirely online. So, we're getting a lot more aggressive in the online space. And to your point, I want to make sure we get as many degrees conferred on mountaineers as we possibly can.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's really been a number of challenges in higher education that face higher education, and one of those is, the value of a degree, right? Reality perception, but I think a lot
Mhm.
of parents in particular
Yeah.
really challenge the value of a degree, especially when you look at the potential debt that comes with that. How do you make sure that students at West Virginia really see real value? And maybe part of that is also tied to career readiness.
Yeah. Two ways to answer that. The first is we've established a program where if your household income is below a certain threshold, with the combination of state assistance and Pell Grants, you can come tuition free to West Virginia University. There's a really important statistic, and I think last year we had 45% of our undergraduates that graduated with zero debt.
Hmm.
And that's something because if you want to take on debt to do professional schools or a master's degree or whatever, that's your decision. But our goal is to graduate as many students as we can who in so many ways are free of that crushing burden of debt that you think, holy cow, interest has been accruing, but I haven't had to pay. I graduate and all of a sudden I have 6 months and then bingo, the payment plan has to start. So we're trying our best to really promote that program. The second thing is trying to make it as affordable as we possibly can. We have about 55% of our students who are from out of state, so that out of state tuition does help in many ways subsidize the cost of education for our in-state students. But we also want to give them the chance to have that West Virginia experience. But to your question about the value, I kind of touched on it before that no matter what you choose to do, like I'm a historian, and being a historian really doesn't have a lot of applicability to the management side of my job every day. That's why I went back to Notre Dame and got a business degree, a nonprofit administration degree, because I took all the classes I avoided, like accounting and statistics and finance and the things that you have to have really to run, $1 billion budget like we have at the university. But no matter what you choose to do, learn how to get along with others, show up on time, be responsible, communicate, write well, be empathetic, be able to put yourself in other people's position and lead that way. And I think all those things come from an education that is steeped in maybe history, philosophy, English, sociology, psychology, all those are what we'd call the soft sciences, in addition to the hard sciences where I think your job prospects are probably a little bit better if you're a computer engineer or chemical engineering, or on case petroleum engineering, or you go into the pre-medicine field. So we really try to promote education for education's sake, to become a learned person and to know what it means to have that value of an education that trains your mind to be able to adapt. Because so many kids are studying here probably today, Brad, for jobs that don't even exist yet. And maybe they'll come into existence in 5, 7, 10 years. But I think the value of an education, and I'll end with this. Think about how much you grow up as a college student. You learn how to manage your time, how to get along with your roommate, how to manage your money, how to, adulting can be hard for an 18, 19-year-old kid that's away from
Sure.
home for the
Sure.
first time. So there's always a place, I would argue, for that college experience and those really formative years.
Yeah. So what what role do you see AI playing?
Well, I mean, it seems every day it changes.
Yeah.
I used it today in our board meeting because we have a rare earth elements component of our school where we can extract these rare minerals from waste. And so I used the example with our board. I said, "Tell me a university that is expert in this particular area." And guess what? West Virginia University popped up. So that's one kind of silly example of you have it at your fingertips and you can get an instant answer to anything. But the challenge we have a presidential task force considering all the ways that it can be used. Think about it, it's discipline agnostic, meaning it doesn't matter what you're in, AI can impact and improve your performance in your particular area. Um, I want it to be a tool. I don't want it to be a crutch. I don't want students to only rely on that particular aspect of learning where they can just ask AI this or give them a prompt, and next thing you know, a paper gets churned out. You got to do the work. You can use it as a way to certainly complement your work, but it's every day it changes. So I don't know if I have all, I know I don't have the answers, but I use it really on a daily basis, and it really makes what we do a lot easier and a lot more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So now where do you see West Virginia in the next 5 years, the next 10 years? What does that look like?
Well, I think our enrollment's going to continue to stabilize and grow. We're in the midst of a pretty significant fundraising campaign, our biggest ever. Our goal was initially $1.5 billion. That's with a B. We're going to far exceed that. And if you had said, West Virginia would raise $2 billion, I don't think anybody would have believed you. But that's the norm these days in terms of private support. I really want to see our athletic programs do better. We have some deferred maintenance issues that we're trying to address. I'm coming to you from a building that was built in 1900. It's a beautiful old building, but it's got some of those kind of historic challenges. I also want to see, I have a daughter in high school. She'll be going to college next year. I have a freshman in college. And, students like to go to a place that has a little juice, has a good vibe to it. It has some, social media presence. It's kind of cool, but it's also a welcoming place. It's a place where they feel like they belong. And I want students to feel like they belong here at West Virginia University. Every time I see a prospective student on campus, I say, look, you're looking at a lot of different places. This is a really exciting time in your life. Enjoy it. Go to those campuses, but you will know when you set foot on a place, on a campus, that this is where I belong. And
Yeah.
we certainly hope it'll be the case here. But they've got to go where the right place for them.
Well, and I always like doing this little fun exercise. So bear with me here, but behind you, yeah, but it looks like a lot of fun pictures,
Yeah.
maybe some trophies, but can you pick out one or two things back there that might, tie a story to it? Maybe one of your top mementos back there?
Yeah. So right off my right shoulder, in fact, let me grab it real quick. Hold on. If you know, Brad, we have this tradition of singing Country Roads, which is a song that John Denver made famous when our
Sure.
football stadium opened in 1980. He came and performed. We sing it when we win. Tomorrow's graduation, I'll sing it twice at two different ceremonies. But my brother was an editorial cartoonist for the Arizona Republic, and he was nominated for the Pulitzer multiple times. He won it once. But when John Denver died, he was a big John Denver fan. So you can see the
Oh,
cartoon.
wow.
It
Yeah,
says, Take me home,
absolutely.
country roads. And then it says John Denver, 1943, 1997. Now, when Steve drew that, I can't remember where I was. I think I was working at the University of Utah. Well, my brother died in July, and I went to the funeral with my wife and a couple of my kids. And his widow is a very good friend. We love Claire. And Steve very rarely framed his original cartoons,
Mhm.
but I knew that he had that one, and I'd always admired it. And I'd only gotten the job a few months before, and Claire said to me after the funeral, she said, Michael, your brother would want you to have this cartoon. And so there's a little piece of my brother that I see every day. The tie to West Virginia is so powerful because that's in many ways our anthem. And if you watched the Super Bowl last year, they did
Yep.
that commercial, and then they panned to the Superdome, and everybody was singing it. I mean, it's so that really means a lot to me, and I
That's
appreciate you letting me tell that story.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there really is no better way to wrap up a great podcast. I really appreciate you sharing that and also sharing your time and just great thought leadership. So, President Michael Benson, thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Brad. We say here, let's go Mountaineers.